Hey, hello and welcome to another Just 5 Mins. Wow, this one is sort of strange in a way, because why would you use this? What I'm talking about is Azure SQL Database external REST endpoints integration. I first looked at this when it was in, I think it was in an early adopter stage, and I got the idea, but it sort of phased out a little bit, but it's in public preview now. Basically, it's the ability to call REST endpoints natively from Azure SQL databases. And you might think, why on earth would I want to do that? And it's a very good point. There's lots of reasons why that might, sort of shake you to the core. But you have been able to do that anyway by using, I forget the name now, but you can sort of shell out, if you like, to call other, well, obviously like native C# code anyway in SQL databases. But this is from specifically Azure SQL Database, which is quite intriguing. And there's a lot of stuff you can do. You can call out to containers, Azure functions, app services, logic apps, cognitive services, Power BI, event grid. Now that's an interesting one, because if you've got something, and I'll post the little screenshot snippet of the code because it might just explain a little bit easier, and obviously a link to the post that I've seen. But the fact is that, with all this sort of event-driven type of stuff out there, which can become a ball of string, and a knotted ball of string at that. But interestingly, this is really interesting when it comes to things like if you've got some code to do something in SQL and you want to push out that what's happened to say something like event hubs or event grid to do the pub sub type of integration. That's because obviously you could have an Azure function sitting on the end of that, or a queue, or whatever, or it might be that you're pushing out to cognitive services in Azure, or the equivalent in AWS, to actually do some. I'm going to use that the quick acronym AI. I'm going to use it, but basically you can imagine you could do some AI on whatever data is that you're processing. Maybe it's from a result of a query or something like that. The fact that this is a native thing, because I know you've been able to do it with the OLE sort of stuff in the past a long time ago, and I've done that. That's years ago. How efficient that was, I don't know. I don't think it would be brilliant, but this is sort of like native, and that's what. And the fact is, it's been offered from Azure SQL Database, which is something that really jumps out. That's a managed infrastructure, so they've got to be a little bit sure that this is going to work and without taking down servers all the time. So it's not going to be your server that you have to worry about. But this is quite incredible, I think. I think it's got some amazing application here. For me personally, hooking into things like Azure Functions, where you've got, and I always relate to that as being like HTTP functions, but of course it isn't limited to that. You've got lots of other types of Azure functions, but also the fact that you've got event grid and logic apps that you can pull in, and Power BI, Power Apps and the Dataverse, you can hook into that. Crikey, you can hook into IoT, the Internet of Things as well. But I think for me personally, the fact that you've got the pub sub mechanism queues as part of that, like something like a Azure Event Grid or Event Hubs, and things like Azure Functions is really compelling. And so you can interlace the from the SQL Azure side to your Azure function back to Azure SQL for updates or whatever it might be. So it's an interesting thing. And at first, I don't think a lot of people are going to get it. But I don't know. I think it's got some real value there. So it's an interesting one this week. It is an Azure Microsoft sort of centric one, this one, I must admit. There's probably other examples in like AWS and things like that as well, which I will explore. I don't want to make this just Microsoft centric. As I've said before, I'm still going to Microsoft Anonymous. But anyway, but this one is, I think, very clever, and it's not going to be instantly applicable what you could do with this, but seriously, I think you could have a look, and the penny might drop for you as well. So without being too over arrogant there. But anyway, that's what I've got for this time around. I'll post the links in the show notes, and we'll see you on the next one.